If you're new to the channel, then welcome, and if you're returning to the channel, then welcome back. I just want to say a quick thank you to you for tuning in. So over the last couple of videos, I spent a lot of time talking about my money mistakes, especially in my teenage years. And I think that's okay. Ultimately, nobody expects a teenager or even an early 20-something-year-old to have paved a pathway to solve all of their financial woes. But for me, it was between these ages of 19 and 20 that I realized I wanted to start making some changes, especially in the way that I was managing my money. I knew that later on in life, I didn't want to be in a position to where I felt like I was forced to work or that I hadn't saved enough money or made enough income over the years. And most importantly, I wanted to gain some kind of financial freedom so that way I could do anything I wanted to at any time. So I came up with some financial goals that I wanted to accomplish over the next, 20 years, maybe 10 years. And those goals were making great investments as early as I possibly could, saving up a lot of money, buying real estate, buying up land, and turning all of those things into multiple income streams. But I knew that if I wasn't going to be able to understand and apply the basics of personal finance, I wasn't going to be able to progress towards any of those goals. So that brings us to today's video. Whether or not you have the same financial goals that I listed, if you can start working towards accomplishing these 5 steps, you'll really set yourself up for some long-term growth and cover what I would consider to be the personal finance basics. Step number 1 is you need to make a budget right now. Seriously, if you don't have a budget right now and you have no idea what your money is doing day to day, as you're watching this video, you need to start thinking about these things. And the first thing that you do when you're creating a budget is you have to identify your income. And I'm talking about every possible income stream that you can think of. You should be including your main job. You should be including any side hustles, or maybe you sell stock photography online. Maybe you work for pennies on Amazon MTurk. Whatever you do that generates income and it goes into your bank account, you need to start tracking that. Now, maybe you work a job that's based on commission or tips. Like, for example, I worked as a bartender and a waiter in my early 20s, so sometimes that income fluctuated and it was hard to measure what it would be month to month. What I always did was just take the average of all of the months that I worked, and that's what I would calculate as my income. And any of those averages that I found, I would always stick on the lower end. That way, when things did get busy and I was making more income for that month, it kind of felt like extra money, and I was always prepared in case an unexpected finance came up. Next, you need to identify all of your required expenses, and I'm talking specifically about required expenses, okay? That's going to be things like your mortgage or your rent, your utilities like your electricity or your water, probably your internet and your phone bill, childcare if you have children, something that is a required expense. Notice that I'm not including things like your Netflix subscription, the extra money that you spend out eating at sushi restaurants, going to the movies. Those things are not required expenses. So step number 2, get your required expenses. Once you have your income and your required expenses, subtract your expenses from your income, and that will leave you with the amount of money you have to save and spend on some of the non-essential items. Step number 2, you need to create an emergency fund. And this step is really important because I did a little bit of research on this and found that people aged 34 and younger, which happens to be my age group, have an average savings of $1,350, which in some places is not even 1 month worth of rent. Your emergency fund should be at least 3 to 6 months of your required expenses. And honestly, I would say that it should be more like 6 to 12 months of your required expenses. If you look at our current economic climate, I think it definitely supports that. There are tons of people out of jobs right now. Tons of people still haven't even received their very first stimulus check. And there's a lot of uncertainty about unemployment benefits, which aren't even currently active, or if there will even be a second stimulus check. I guarantee that people who had emergency funds that covered at least 6 to 12 months of their expenses are floating a lot more comfortably than people who only have $1,350 in their savings account. Now, there is a rule called the 50-30-20 rule, and it's not so much a rule, it's more of a guideline of how you can organize your budget. It basically says that 50% of your money can go to expenses that are required, 30% can go to kind of extracurricular spending, and 20% should be going to your savings. And I think this is okay. It's a good starting point. Personally, I think that saving more is better. Right now, I'm saving about 50% of my income, but I realize this is different for everyone. So strive for bare minimum 20%, but if you can do more, definitely do more. Now, if you've done the math and you've created your budget, you can actually calculate how long it's going to take you to reach your goal of saving 6 to 12 months worth of expenses for your emergency fund based on how much money you're saving each month. Let's just say if your income after tax is $3,000 a month, $1,500 can go to your necessities, $900 can go to your extracurricular spending, and $600 can go to your savings. As you can see here, we're following the 50-30-20 rule. Now, creating an emergency fund for 6 months comes out to $9,000. If you're saving $600 a month, it would take you 15 months to save for an emergency fund that would cover 6 months of spending on necessities. And personally, this is why I recommend it's much better to strive for something higher than saving 20%. But again, everyone's circumstances are different. The best you can do is 20%. That's the best you can do. Number 3, pay off your debt. If you have any kind of credit card debt or any other high interest debt, you need to be paying that off as soon as possible. If you're carrying a balance on anything, the interest rates on those things are so high that over time it's just going to cook you. My advice is always pay off your entire credit card bill each month. The interest rates on those things are so high. It's just, you have to pay it off every month. I mean, I've seen interest rates on some credit cards as high as like 25%. So if you're carrying a balance on that, again, it's really just going to be burning your money away. Now, if you have a lot of high interest rate debt, you may need to look at your budget and reorganize how much money you're contributing to your emergency fund and how much you're contributing towards paying off that debt. Ultimately, I think making an emergency fund is the most important thing. But again, if you really need to pay off that high interest debt and it's just accumulated to this astronomical amount, make the necessary adjustments that you need to make for your situation. Step number 4 is contributing to a 401k, especially if your employer matches your contribution. Now, for whatever reason, this is something that I still see people not taking advantage of if their employer offers it. And I don't know if this is just out of laziness or they feel like it's a hassle. Maybe they just don't even know about it. If your employer offers a 401k, then it's also likely that they'll be offering to match whatever contributions you're making to that account up to a certain percentage. Usually it's somewhere between 3 and 6%. So what does this all mean? Basically, if you're making $50,000 a year and you decide that you're going to contribute 6% of your yearly salary to your 401k, your employer will offer to match the percentage of 6%, meaning you're effectively doubling the amount of money that goes into your 401k each month. You're getting extra free money from your employer just for contributing to a 401k. Another great benefit to contributing to your 401k is it reduces your taxable income. So at the beginning of the year when it's tax season, you will owe less money in taxes. Before we go further into this, let me just give the warning. Okay, I'm not a tax professional. I'm not an accountant or anything like that. I'm not a CPA. So make sure you do your own research, consult with a tax professional and all of those things. Don't blame me if the IRS comes asking you for money and you get audited and all of those horrible things. Okay, let's get back to what I was talking about with the tax stuff. So if you made $50,000 before taxes and you took the standard deduction, which was $12,200 last year, that makes your taxable income $37,800, which means you would be responsible for paying $4,342 for your federal income tax. However, if you contributed 6% of your salary to a 401k, which uses pre-tax dollars, that would be a total of $3,000 for the year in 401k contributions, which reduces your taxable income after applying the standard deduction in the 401k contributions to $34,800. Now this would reduce the federal income tax that you owe to $3,982. So having a 401k is going to save you some money when it comes to paying taxes, as well as using some of those pre-tax dollars to contribute to a retirement plan that's going to grow over the years. So having a 401k and contributing to it seems like a totally great plan, and it is. But one thing to remember is that when you hit your retirement age and you go to pull out all of this money that you've invested and has hopefully grown to these exponentially high numbers over the years, you will have to pay taxes on it. Unfortunately, there just is no escaping the tax man. So just keep that in mind. Step number 5 is to open a Roth IRA account. So once you've already invested in a 401k with your employer and you're matching the percentage that they match, you should be looking at opening up a Roth IRA. Now, a Roth IRA is just another retirement investing account, but there are some key differences from a 401k that offer you some pretty good and unique advantages. The 2 key differences are the following. A Roth IRA account is funded with post-tax dollars, which just means the money that you're contributing has already been taxed. Now, compare this to a 401k, which uses pre-tax dollars. This means that if you're contributing to a Roth IRA, those contributions cannot be used to lower your taxable income. Now, in the short term, this sounds like a disadvantage, and it kind of is, but there's actually a great long-term advantage, which we're going to talk about right now. Since a Roth IRA account is using post-tax dollars, money that's already been taxed, to fund it, when you go to pull out that money at retirement age, all of the contributions you've made, as well as the long-term investment gains that you've made on that money, none of it is taxed. It's all tax-free when you go to pull it out at retirement age, which is great because the whole point of retirement planning and retirement investing and just long-term investing in general is how much money you make as capital gains. Compare this to a 401k where, yes, you can use it to reduce your taxable income and your employer is going to be doing a percentage-based match of your contribution. Those are some good benefits, but you still have to pay a huge amount of taxes when you go to pull it out at retirement age. So again, this is a big deal for the Roth IRA because since you're using post-tax dollars, any contributions that you make and any gains that you make on those contributions over the years are going to be pulled out tax-free when you go to retire, it's just great. The second key difference with a Roth IRA account is that if you need to, you can withdraw the money that you've contributed with no penalty. I want to be really clear here. I'm talking about the money that you contributed. So let's just say, for example, that you contributed $6,000 to a Roth IRA account, and currently that's the maximum you can contribute in a year. If you got a 10% return, then that account would have a total of $6,600 in it. Now, if for some reason you needed to, you could pull out $6,000 since that's what you initially contributed, and there would be no penalty. The remaining $600, which are the returns from your investment, will stay in the Roth IRA account. Now, compare this to a 401k where, excluding a few minor cases, if you try to pull out any of the gains that you've made or even any of the contributions that you've made, you're going to be subject to a tax and you're going to be subject to a penalty fee. So having both a Roth IRA and a 401k account offer you some unique advantages for each one, and this is why they're commonly recommended as having both. You should just get both of them and contribute to them at the same time. Their advantages nicely complement each other, and if you're at the point where you can start contributing to both a 401k and a Roth IRA, you're definitely on your way to accomplishing some really great financial goals. Now, this seems like a lot of work, and honestly, it kind of is. But the good thing is that no one expects you to accomplish this overnight, and so you shouldn't really stress about needing to get all of this done tomorrow or in a month or in 6 months or even a year. Instead, you should be using this as a roadmap to help guide you and help you progress through your own personal finance journey. And as you learn more and become more efficient at how you manage and handle your money, you'll be knocking steps off this list before you even know it. As always, like and comment down below. It's going to let me know if you want to see more content like this. If you want to stay up to date, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.